February 22nd, 9:23 a.m. The Old Bailey, Defendant's Antechamber. The Old Bailey. This always makes me feel strange. I seem to get chills down my spine and break into a nervous sweat all the time. Well, I didn't think that I'd be back here so soon. That's my line. Good morning. Ah, good morning, Mr. Natsume. So only 2 days ago that I was declared not guilty. Yes. We somehow managed to prove he didn't stab Miss Green in the back. But now this? Another morning, another murder, and here I am again in this hellhole. Can't keep coming to court. I'm beginning to think he's right. It really does seem as though he's cursed. Mr. Naruhodo, I'm afraid I have bad news. Oh. Mr. Natsume, good morning. Yes, morning. So here we are again. Yes, again. Due to the assistant, Miss Mikatoba Esquires. What's the bad news? Oh dear, you heard, did you? Come and shouting at the top of your voice. People can't help hearing what you say. Oh, I'm sorry. You've done nothing wrong, Mrs. Sato. Now, what is it? Well, it seems that the prosecution in today's trial will be led by Lord Barrick von Zeeks. Van Zeeks? Gah! Oh, no. Why is Van Zeeks just showing up for the trials that we're in? Like, seriously, what? There's gotta be more to it. So-called Reaper of the Bailey, the most legendary prosecutor in the land. Trial 2 days ago. He pursued Soseki-san and I relentless. Of course, by the skin of our teeth, we managed to pull through. But still. Perhaps Mr. Natsume's acquittal in the last trial wasn't the end of the matter after all. Yes, I know what you're thinking. Legend is a Reaper that says, nothing can save a person from the dock when Lord Van Zeeks is the prosecutor. Oh no. That even if the person is found not guilty, the accused will meet a mysterious end, one way or another. And we've experienced it firsthand. A man we successfully defended and met the most terrifying end after this acquittal. Right here in the Old Bailey. Do I have to put up with these ice cold eyes boring into my souls again? Just my evil spirit sent now by the Reaper. Pair of petrifying pearls, potentially. Well, if it's potentially, at least you appear to have hope, Mr. Natsume. Locum student Mr. Naruhodo Esquire. Ah, yes? I'm innocent. You have to believe me. You, more than anyone now. Don't worry. I'll be your steadfast ally every step of the way in this battle. I promise. This promises to be a hard battle, I fear. Well, the trial is scheduled to begin shortly. We should move into the courtroom. Let's go. Yes, I forgot to say. I'm afraid he won't be able to make it. Mr. Sholmes, I mean. That's probably for the best. Oh? Here. I might be tempted to rely on his help. That could be seen as a weakness. If Lord Van Zeeks were to notice, he'd prey on it mercilessly. At least, that's my gut feeling. Mr. Naruhodo. You're right. Yes, you're right. Oh, well said, Locum Student Naruhodo Esquire. Well said. I swear on this sword at my side, and on the spirit of Kazuma, that it harbors. I'll show him what a Japanese lawyer can do, and I'll set you free with honor. Oh yes. Alright. Here we go. In the name of Her Majesty the Queen, I hereby declare this court in session. Now, I call upon the counsels for the prosecution and defense to declare their willingness to proceed. The prosecution is ready. The defense is ready, my lord. Readiness for the trial, my learned impotence friend, is not what the defense needs. What you need is readiness for your inevitable defeat. It's not just my imagination. It's really there. Lord Van Zieks has such an animosity towards us Japanese for some reason. It was some time ago now that he first became known as the Reaper of the Bailiwick. The past few years, he hasn't appeared in court at all. And now, he's back in the courtroom, though for some reason. Only when I'm defending. This Reaper, with his curious disdain for us Japanese, is a prosecutor shrouded in mystery. Still, this isn't the time to be pondering that. I have to concentrate on Soseki-san's trial. Furthermore, I now call upon the 6 ladies and gentlemen of the jury. You have been chosen at random to represent the will of the people in this trial. Are you ready to fulfill your duty? This guy again. Her again. Him again. We got a new one. Oh, I think you... your hat. I think it's... She's new. I need to be somewhere at 10 o'clock. I have a very important meeting. Let's make this quick. It's 10 o'clock now. This guy again. It's like all these jurors except for one we've seen before. British jury system is so very different to our own, isn't it? Power of judgment is enhanced to 6 members as a vote. And that the judge can only pass down sentences when all the jurors are in agreement about the defense skill. 6 citizens London, chosen at random. Or at least, that's the idea. The prosecution would draw attention to the fact that the accused was on trial here but 2 days ago. Accordingly, where possible, the same jurors have been asked to return for duty today. Why? It makes them kind of biased witnesses, or biased jurors. I don't like it. Very well. Let us commence the trial. Lord Van Zieks, your opening statement, please. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, it is not the intent of the prosecution to cast doubt over your past decision. However, the innocent verdict afforded to this eccentric impulsons before has the dire consequences. Did the accused repent for his wrongdoing in that affair? Far from it. Instead, he used his freedom to perpetrate a most blood-curdling crime. Namely, that of attempted murder of his neighboring lodger, an innocent Englishman. To explain the circumstances of the crime, the prosecution calls its first witness to the stand. The detective responsible for investigating the scene, and the accused himself. Witnesses, your names and occupations, please. Yes, sir. Tobias Gregson, Detective Inspector at Scotland Yard's Homicide Division. Ah, Soseki Natsume, from the Empire of Japan. My government ordered me to come here as a student. Study your language and culture. Mr. Natsume. Yes, my lord. Sir. I'm quite sure I'm not mistaken. That you swore an oath never to set foot in my courtroom again. I remember as if it were yesterday. The day before, in fact, my lord. But close enough. Believe me, it's the last place I wanted to be. Inspector, let's hear from you first. Explain the case to the court. Right you are, sir. The incident occurred at the Garrideb household, where the defendant had lodgings. Ground floor of the victim, Mr. William Shakespeare. The defendant had already admitted to visiting the victim on the night in question. Mr. Shakespeare collapsed in his room as a result of poisoning by strychnine. He was found the following morning when the landlord suspected something was wrong, broke down the door. This means, I presume, that the door to the victim's room was locked at the time of the incident. Correct, my lord. It was locked from the inside, making entry to exit from the room impossible. Although the victim, Mr. Shakespeare, lives to tell tale, he very nearly did. The man was halfway to heaven when we first found him. I was the first officer on the scene, my lord. Photograph print of here that I took at the time to show how it looked. Yes, a chilling scene. In a chilling scene, the man looks very much deceased. Is that puddle right there? That's right. Everyone present believed that's exactly what it was. Very well. I shall accept this photographic prints as evidence for the court. Now then, Mr. Natsume. Yes, yes! As a defendant, do you have anything to say on this juncture? They're haunted by evil spirits. Good gracious, what's haunted? My lodgings. There's been a whole series of strange happenings in my lodgings. The tenant before me died in mysterious circumstances. A woman was stabbed by no one on the street outside. My neighbor was poisoned. And me. What about me? I've nearly been killed countless times. Killed, Mr. Natsume? How? Even on that fateful night, it happened when I returned from Mr. Shakespeare's room. Lit my gas stove and climbed into bed, but before long, the stove went out, and somebody tried to kill me. Must always extinguish all fires before retiring for the night, Mr. Natsume. But it's so cold, my runny nose would freeze. But I didn't poison my neighbor. Oh, why am I being accused of this? Why is my existence so cursed? Thank you, witness. I believe I have a reasonably clear picture of the events. If I could raise one more point, my lord. One more conclusive point. Conclusive? Go on. Fortunately, the victim, Mr. Shakespeare, has regained consciousness after his ordeal, and he has named the true culprit. The poison consumed by the victim was administered in a cup of tea that he drank on the night in question. Tea, my lord, that was brought to the victim's room by the accused. The accused? Good grief! Order! Order! Yes, That's the crux of this whole case. If Soseki-san is innocent, then why? Why has the victim accused him? Well, Mr. Natsume, why have you stated the accusation? That evening, yes, I did take some freshly brewed tea with me when I visited Mr. Shakespeare's room as a gift. The public water pump outside always freezes at night, so I bought bottled water especially to make it. This is the result. I never will touch tea again. Never! The public pump was frozen, you say? That's not information we've heard before. That will do. Thank you. Now, according to our laws, the defense must have the opportunity to cross-examine witnesses at least once. Therefore, call upon these witnesses now for formal testimony. I presume the prosecution has no objection. None whatsoever, my lord. Good. Then you will give your account of events on the night in question to the court of law. Yes, my lord. It was around 9 o'clock that evening when I visited my neighbor, and I took some tea with me as a gift. We had a heated literary debate over a nice hot drink, after which I went back to my room at around 11. My tea was completely harmless. You couldn't have locked the door behind me otherwise, could he? Stress and takes some time to have an effect on the body. People don't kneel over immediately after taking it. The victim would have been perfectly able to lock the door after his guest left. The argument still stands. Yes, I see. It all seems relatively straightforward. Excuse me, but that testimony does raise one rather crucial point, I think. Mr. Natsume claims the tea to have been harmless. Presumably, though. The teacups have been examined for traces of poison, haven't they? Why didn't I think of that? Well, as it happens, no, we haven't been able to. Did I hear you correctly, Inspector? Scotland Yard has failed to examine the suspect's substance. How could you have overlooked something so important? Isn't that the first thing you should have done? My learned Ponzen's friend is falsely incensed. The inspector said Scotland Yard was unable to examine the tea. Not that it was overlooked. Unable? Why? Simple enough. There's none left, not a drop. Someone must have been very thirsty indeed. It was quite significant because it is impossible to test for poison under such circumstances. We only need a drop, but that one drop does actually have to exist, funnily enough. Can you take from this? Can you take from the stained line? The lack of examination notwithstanding, it appears nothing other than that he passed the victim's lips on the night in question. I see. Thank you. The matter is clear. Cast your eye over the jury, my learned friend. You can see it in their faces, I'm sure. The recognition of the accused's guilt. Client's fate is all but sealed. In mere moments from now, you will lose. Your compatriot will be damned for all eternity. I still have to have my cross-examination, so I can feel all 6 jurors looking daggers at me. Can't let them beat me down. I won't. Counsel for the defense, proceed with your cross-examination. Yes, my lord. debate about Shakespeare's work, I think he said. Shakespeare. Ah, very worthy topic of conversation, I must say. Oh, yes, my lord. Romeo and Juliet, who was stronger, was a profoundly pleasurable party. Romeo and Juliet. Who was stronger? No, I'm gonna regret asking this. How did the debate go? Well, we both agreed that we'd research a conclusion more quickly with the reenactment. So we battled it out. In Greco-Roman style, naturally. What? Mr. Shakespeare had all sorts of costumes in his room for just such a contest. So you say reenactment, you mean you were actually in costume? He was Romeo, I as Juliet. After a vigorous wild tussle, I, as Juliet, came out on top. A victory cherished forever. I dare not imagine the terrible scene of carnage. The fact remains that it was you who prepared the tea and took it to the victim, correct? I boiled the water in my room, made a pot to take it with me. I'd heard that he was too poor to have tea himself, you see. It's true. There's no sign of any tea leaves in the man's room. I wanted to do something nice, to be friendly. So why is when everyone looking at me with such suspicion? My tea was harmless. Of course it was. And do you have a basis for that statement, witness?
Hold it!
Yes, there was not a drop of tea left in the victim's room anywhere, was there? That's correct. Anyone would think the fellow had never had a pot of tea before. Must have liked it dry. It's a pity because one drop is all we would have needed to analyze for poison. 11 o'clock. Yes, definitely. By heaven and earth, I swear it. Landlord was able to verify that, as it happens. Confirmed that the defendant went back to his room at 11 at night. How is the landlord ever able to attest to this? He, said it was the lamps, I believe. The lamps, Inspector? Tenants return to their rooms and start using the gas lamps in the other parts of the house flicker. Yes, Mr. Greydub seems to pay a lot of attention to the comings and goings of his tenant. So only one key to Mr. Shakespeare's room. I know that for certain. He must have locked the door himself from inside his room. Victim had confirmed that he had that to be the case. Yes. So I'm right. My tea was harmless. Completely harmless. You take poison, you'll die. Everyone knows that. It's not that simple, I'm afraid. What do you mean? Strike 9. Takes some time to affect the body. You don't kneel over immediately after taking it. How long does it take for symptoms to appear then? According to the coroner I speak into at the yard. About 30 minutes after the poison's consumption. 30 minutes after. So, if Natsume brought the tea at 9 and they both drank it right then, wouldn't the effects have taken place at like 9:30? Hour and a half before Mr. Natsume left? Hello? Victim some violent convulsions, cramping, and stiffness, and eventually dies from asphyxiation. The 30-minute interval between when the poison's ingested and onset of symptoms. Seems to be a lot different types of poison in the world, that's for sure. Dear, death by poisoning again. It's always so awful. 30 minutes is a long time. Certainly long enough for the victim to have locked the door behind the accused after he left. Can't deny that. And it further degrades the psychic-sense alibi. I have a medical report from the doctor who examined the victim here, my lord. Spells it out, really. The accused is the only person who could have done it. Very well. The court will add this report to the court record as evidence. Delayed onset of symptoms. William Shanspeare, 30. Ingestion of a small quantity of strychnine. Toxic effects present 30 minutes after ingestion. High likelihood of the substance having been mixed in with the tea the victim was drinking, but no sample could be obtained for testing. The poisoning incident occurred at around 1:38. 1:30 a.m. We have a contradiction. Great.
Objection!
I don't believe you. The argument still stands, you say. I think not, Inspector. Come again? I think you'll find that you've overlooked a very significant chronological inconsistency here. What? What are y'all going on about? According to this report that you literally just handed me like 2 seconds ago, the victim must have consumed the poison at around 1:30 in the morning. And yet, the defendant, Mr. Natsume, left the victim's room at 11. Yes, that's right. More than 2 hours of missing time there. In other words, if there was poison in the tea that Mr. Natsume brought to the victim's room, how could the victim have fallen ill to 2.5 full hours after the defendant left? Ah! The defense's argument is entirely reasonable. How do you respond, Lord Van Zieks? Pray, forgive the discourtesy if my mind has wandered. I was considering what cuisine would best complement the contents of my hollowed chalice in this luncheon. How could that have happened, you ask? I do hate to shatter illusions, but my important friend appears to be chasing a phantom idea. A phantom? It is so hard to imagine that the victim drank the tea after the accused had left. For example, the time stated in the medical report. Yes, at around half past.
Objection!
The listener brought the tea and the drink together with his neighbor. In Japan, it is well known to say, drink tea while it's hot.
Objection!
And in my country, there is even more apt saying. There is nothing more refreshing than cold tea. It's going right where I'm thinking. There may have been other ways to explain the victim came to be poisoned. Other possibilities. What sort of possibilities, Counsel? Well, one example, man could have had another visitor. Another visitor. That's a very bold assertion, my learned friend, from someone who has nothing to substantiate it. Or the victim could have taken the poison on his own volition. You suggest that this may have been a suicide, Counsel?
Objection!
Mr. Shamspeare has categorically denied suicide. The idea can and must be discounted.
Objection!
But he could be lying. Is something wrong, Lord Van Zeeks? I was listening to the sound of the carriage pulling up outside the courtroom. Pray, forgive the discourtesy. Carriage? What carriage? It would seem that the key player in this case has just arrived. Hold it! Out, out, out the brief candle. Life's but a walking shadow. A poor player that struts and frets an hour upon the stage, and then is heard no more. It is a tale told by an idiot, full of sound and fury, significantly nothing. Who, sir, are you? William Shamspeare, my lord. Alas, 'twas I undone by the bitter incense. I am the victim. What? What's he doing here? The prosecution seeks to call this gentleman to the stand. With his testimony, my learned friend's futile resistance will be utterly crushed. You're calling him as a witness? Very well, counsel. I grant your request with interest. Curious to discover what the court shall hear from the victim himself. I just remembered. I don't think I looked around at this. What is that, Mr. Naruhodo? Or so. I found it. Could have sworn. Some sort of round disc and impression here. A reddish. Yes, you're right. I remember it too. Now, the impression is completely empty. Wait, how did it disappear? So yeah, that little green speck is still back there. Still very suspect of that. I'm curious to discover what the court shall hear from the victim himself. Happy I am, Shamspeare, to regale thee with my tale of woe, my lord. But I still have my own tale to tell. My own tale of the worst woe. I cannot regale the court with the tale of my perfect innocence and perfect English. That will do, Mr. Osume. Let the court now hear from the victim. Wait, where'd this guy come from? What's the other man beside him? Yes, I feel sure we caught a glimpse of that man before. State your names and occupations for the court, please, witnesses. A writer of words so sweet, they do scent the breeze, an inventor of ideas so profound that they compose the earth. The unrivaled poet, the unmatched scribe, William Shamspeare. was a great bard to be recalled to my life anew. Lo, what a magnificent man! Good fellows, I am he. I am he who wonders such a miracle, William Shakespeare. Oh, name's Meterman. Adron B. Meterman. I work at the Alamo Gas Company East End branch office. Ah, I remember now. It was yesterday on Briar Road. Yes, she's right. It's him. What's this? What's a man doing over there? Looks like he's trying to see into Soseki-san's lodgings. Something wrong, Mr. Naruto? Excuse me, can we have a word? Yes, we spotted him outside Garadeb's house that morning. And he's a gas company employee. What does he have to do with this case? So, Mr. William Shakespeare, you are the victim in this miserable affair, correct? Oh heavens, oh hell. Do you command me to remember? The sweet poison that did cross me and cross mine innocent lips. I subpoenaed him for the trial, with his doctor's permission, naturally. Hearing the testimony of the aggrieved will remove any room for doubt from the jurors' minds, I'm sure. Behold! You have to rearrange the letters of my name to see that me's sharp an angel indeed. Thus, be a noble of mind, sweet nature, and very honest of heart, as all heavenly angels be. Because there isn't a less contrived meaning in your name. No, not at all. The jurors seem to be very moved by this man, I'm afraid. They're actually taking a sharp anagram idea seriously. Thank you, witnesses, for your illuminating introductions. But my lord, what's the man Mr. Nexus Shakespeare doing here? The gas man, I mean. Huh? What? Me? Well, now. Allow me to enlighten my learned friend. You recall, I presume, your earlier interpretance, when you suggested that the victim had another visitor to his room on the night in question. And moreover, that the victim is a compulsive liar. What? No, I didn't quite say that. This young Jen Stroker is here to convert your mind your wild claims. Is that not so, Mr. Mitaman? Eh? Hang on. No. I'm just here. Hereby call for your formal testimonies. We'll tell the court as ludicrously possible what happened on the night in question. One may smile and smile be a villain. Yes, it does pain me. But let the truth be spoken. The truth is what... The truth of that wintry night of my discontent. The snow lay about. My neighbor did come as the evening, bearing a gift of tea. Mary, bitter was his drink. When he left, I did fall prostrate on my table. So the tea alone did pass my lips that hour, nothing else. I was outside the spokes window in the freezing cold freezing cold all night, keeping an eye on no one else visited his room on a short little round black eastern west. How does he know that? I'm very highly suspect. Wait, what did you say? You were keeping an eye on Mr. Shakespeare's room all night? That's right. course the bloke's window is all blocked up, isn't it? There's a little gap in the bricks where you can see into the room. We spent the night trying to keep my teeth from chattering as I peered through that. The question is, sir, why? Huh? Well, now that's because he's on my list. What a piece of work is a man. Wherefore wouldst I hit the button too fast. Wherefore wouldst thou not stare in wonderment? What are you talking about? This buzzing busybody has not part in this play. I pray thee, pay him no heed. Make no more ado about his tedious words. I'm going straight to his words. Screw you. Screw you, Mr. Shamspear. Your whole life is a sham. Calm yourself. This court is concerned with what happened on the night in question. Nothing more. Indeed, that is so. And, as the testimony we have just heard clearly reveals, there was no one other than the accused present at the time who could have carried out this crime. Well, I believe this may be the final testimony of the trial. Doubt it. Now, counsel. Counsel, the defense may proceed with cross-examination. Yes, my lord. There's no way this is the last cross-examination. No way. Or the last testimony, is what he said.
Hold it!
But the windows of the house have all been filled in. Scarlet artifact. Now deductive windows. Yeah, you're right there. All bricked up horribly. But as it happens, a little part of the brickwork at the bottom corner has been opened up. We're looking through that gap. Yes, there was a few bricks loose, weren't there? For some strange reason, a couple of bars of soap lined up on the edge outside of the wall. Don't like going around poking my chin in other people's business, especially on freezing cold nights. Them's my orders. That's what I'll keep doing, as long as there's brisk in my body. What's with all this theatricals today? Out of interest, Mr. Man. After the accused had left and returned to his own lodgings, did you see the victim leave the room at all? No, never left. He was in that room the whole time as far as I'm concerned. And we can therefore discount the possibility of suicide. How can you be sure of that? The police carried out a thorough investigation of the scene and found no I can't speak. Receptacle for the poison. And since we know the victim did not leave his room and hence did not dispose of the poison's container himself, it's clear that this was no attempted suicide. Only the culprit could have removed the receptacle. Yes. Luxley explained, counsel. Thank you. Really was. You can't argue with that logic.
Hold it!
You say a short, round black Eastern fellow. So you can't be sure it was the defendant.
Objection!
How many other short, little, round-backed nimponsens with a mustache do you think there are here in London? Well, of course, it's only a narrow cabin. It was quite dark, so I didn't notice the mustache. It showed up at around 9, so I'm pretty sure of myself. when the person you saw arrived. Did he and Mr. Chancellor drink tea together? Nah, sorry. Couldn't say. Why not? Because couldn't see into the room all that well, could I? What I did see was a silhouette of a little wearing a pretty dress. Compare them sort of some kind of wrestling match, I tell you. I don't know what to make of it. I mean, this all makes sense. I suppose. As the Romeo and Juliet championship battle getting underway. Mr. Mitaman, allow me to confirm one final time. Apart from the accused, you state with certainty that no one else visited the victim on the night in question. No question. Gas me is on.
Hold it!
To be clear, my neighbor, you were referring to the defendant, Mr. Sime. Indeed, sire. Promised for the hour of 9, though he did come to tender a gift of fragrant tea. By which I presume he means the discussion about who was stronger, Romeo or Juliet. I chanced to be here to play the part of young Romeo, whilst my neighbor played the fair Juliet. Each of us dressed as would our characters be, to bring weight upon our merry experiment. I dare not imagine the scene. Really, thy name is woman. Canst thou imagine how dismayed I was? Yes, I had heard of the far eastern art of jujutsu, but here I dreamed towards the skill practiced by the commonly maiden. Juliet beat Romeo up? It's not helping her case. I believe the court has done enough about your earth-shattering literary debate. Perhaps you could reiterate your statement about the tea that the accused brought to your room. My liege, I am thy servant. Gladly I would do thy bidding.
Hold it!
Let me stop you there. Mr. Natsumi left your room at 11 o'clock, but it wasn't until after 2 that the poison made you collapse. Naruhodo, I think you mixed up a time there. 1:30. It's like 1:30 is when you collapsed, is what the report says. 3 hours of missing time. Defendant really put poison in your tea. 3-hour window of time is something you're going to have to explain. Golly, 'tis an easy task. What? You did drink your tea. Not all my guests dared to say. We took it after the face. It was stone cold, but at 1 hour past midnight, verily with my lips parted.
Objection!
That doesn't sound normal. Nay, just quite ordinary, sire. After all, thou wouldst recall our fiery debate. Amidst such argument, there would be no time for fiery tea. Romeo and Juliet again. Who is stronger? Mr. Shamspeare, in summary, allow me to confirm. You did not come here with the intention of naming your attacker. Did you not come here Name you attack. But of course, my liege, the stooped lover of words, did attempt to shuffle my off this mortal coil. We all know what that means.
Hold it!
Fine. To eat thrice daily is a waste of time. Very fun. More often than the sun does rise. Well, that's more erotic eating habits, I must say. Night and day I do fill my hours with learned study of the great bard and a playwright. Hence, it is that there does not in my chambers be the costumes of my art. That would appear to be the case, as even a rodent was found starved to death in your room. I think of it, it's not just food that was conspicuously missing from that room. But I don't see a single player script anywhere. For I have devoured them all. You eaten them? Every word be within my skull. There nothing need to imagine otherwise. Right. That wasn't misleading at all. If you turn around, do you think? Which brings us to the conclusion that the only way the poison could have passed the victim's lips is in the tea. Oh boy, here we go. Yes, Mr. Foreman. Kept my mouth shut and I listened up to now. This has gone long enough. Are y'all with me? Yes! I wait to understand. The two ladies and gentlemen of the jury are in agreement with one another. That you've reached a unanimous decision. Too right we have. Y'all with me? Yes! Wait, no. The defense is in the middle of a cross-examination. To be honest, I was holding out a bit of hope for you, young man. Especially after you identified those few hours that followed the accused leaving the victim's room. Yes, the 3 missing hours, as you put it. But in the end, what difference do they make? Not as far as I can see. And since that's now apparent, there's really no reason to delay our decision any longer. Like I was saying before, I don't take 5 bob home with me tonight and missus blow up her time. Huh? What? Sorry, didn't quite catch that. What'd you say? Very well. Let the court be appraised with your decisions. Ladies and gentlemen of the jury, you will state your leanings on the defendant's culpability.
Guilty!
Guilty.
Guilty!
Guilty.
Guilty! Guilty!
All of you? Well, it would appear the jury is indeed unanimous. So, this time at least, it seems justice will be done. All's well that ends well, as they say. This calls for a toast, I feel. To the guilty being punished. Get up, Naruto. Please. Trial isn't over yet. What do you mean, Mrs. Hill? Remember the summation examinations? Secure rights that belongs to defense agency. Remember. Summation examination. Yes, that's right. We don't have a jury in Japanese courts, of course. Here in the British court of law, if we can reverse the decisions of the majority of the jurors, and force the trial to continue. Whatever it takes, just can't let that happen. The defense moves to invoke its right to summation and examination, my lord. Why am I not surprised? My Lord Niampunsen's friend's inability to admit defeat. You chose to cling desperately to some arcane rule you barely comprehend instead of accepting the truth. Certainly no other defense counsel in recent times has exercised his right to summation examination. Because they all know once the jury's mind is set, it cannot be altered. Nevertheless, the right remains and it must be upheld. The defense counsel's request is granted. The court will proceed with the summation examination, as outlined in the Encyclopedia of British Law. Thank you, my lord. Are you and your fellows prepared, Mr. Foreman? Believe me, my lord, we all know this young lad's tenacity. We're ready for it. Well, I'll accept juror number 4. Very well. In that case, ladies and gentlemen of the jury, I hereby call upon you to state the grounds on which you find the defendant guilty of the crime of which he stands. Judicial findings. The juror's contentions. The victim may not be well off, but he's a noble man, straight up. There's no reason to doubt the man. Well, I do declare the good gentleman has no reason to lie. In fact, I think he's rather splendid. Just look at the accused by the comparison. He's Japanese, swoops all the while, and his mustache is very fishy. There's no evidence to suggest the gangling actor is a fraudsman. For now, at least. I really don't care. I just need this trial to end quickly. 3 hours of missing time. It's nothing when you reach my age, you know? Nothing at all. You know, every single one of them seems completely convinced. It would seem that all of the jurors to come to the conclusion that Mr. Shamsphere is a fine, upstanding, and honest citizen. So all we gotta do is crush that. If you ask me, we've all been bewitched by his strange theatrical movements. Sadly, nothing Mr. Natsume has said appears to have registered at all. Well, here goes. Don't forget. I've pleaded with the jury on Soseki-san's behalf before, and it works, so you never know. Before we begin, it might be an idea for me to remind you exactly how summation examining works, Mr. Naruto. No, you don't have to. You don't have to do that. Well, you're still very new to British law. That's true, I suppose. Soseki-san's fate is entirely in my hands, too. There's always a chance I might have forgotten some crucial detail. Dr. Hirsasada-san, wonder, shall I let her talk me through it again, or not bother? No need. I remember very well. Thank you for the kind offer, Mrs. Sato. But I've been through plenty of these summation examinations already now. I think it's important that we don't delay the start any longer than necessary. Of course, I understand. And I'm quite sure you're right. If you're confused by anything at this point, you can turn to me for advice whenever you like. I'll be here for you. The key to this is really listening carefully to each juror's statement. Finding two that are contradictory and pitting the corresponding jurors against each other. Without further ado, please, counsel, proceed with the summation examination.